Good afternoon, Daniel Hungerford Morgan here from the Effective Contractor. How's it going? Today we're going to be looking at estimating. Now, estimating is quite a contentious topic and it's done in a range of different ways. A lot of guys just come up with how they want to estimate and how it kind of best works for them, but the problem with the estimate is that when you get an estimate and you're just guessing it, when you come to do the job, well, your guesses add up to new guesses, and it just adds up to new guesses, and you can't do any reporting, you can't do any tracking really, you can't tie anything in your project together because you don't even know how long your project's supposed to take because you just guessed everything. You don't really know the durations. You got nothing to benchmark off. And so that's a problem with guesstimating. Now, to do estimating is a different way. It's a science. It's something that's proven. It's something that's known, and it can be taught to all the different people in your department who do estimating, or can be you can even just if it's just yourself, and we talk to yourself. And no matter how you do it, you follow this procedure to do estimating. So today I just want to go through and I want to show you an estimating system that actually I've built myself, and it will be able to highlight a few of the key principles. So the first thing in an estimate is that you've got to get the resources. So the resources are, okay, your apprentice, your foreman, your journeyman. You need to work out exactly how much these guys cost you. So you've got to take in all the different expenses around these guys. This isn't accurate in terms of how much your labor costs you. The same thing with equipment. You've got to go through your equipment and you need to say, okay, well, what's all the equipment that I have? I've got all this again is just made up. So you got to go through all the different equipment that you have, and you need to figure out, okay, well, you got depreciation in here, you got insurance in here, you got all sorts of things involved in here. You need to come up with a rate that it actually costs you for that resource. You need to do the same thing with materials. Now, materials, you can be quite broad on your materials, you can be quite specific on your materials. It's up to you, but you need again to be able to figure out, okay, how much do materials cost us? We don't want to be guessing these sorts of things because when you start off the job with guesses, you know how the job ends. It ends with bigger guesses. So you need to be quite accurate about your materials. You go through. Now, what you've got these three things. They come into what you call a cost code. So a cost code is basically it's what you do. So you do roughing. You do tiling. Say you do roofing. Say you use excavating. You do drilling. Whatever you do, those are cost codes. So a cost code is basically an action. So if you're doing roughing, if you're doing drilling, if you're doing framing, if you're doing painting, whatever it is, that's got cost codes. So that's a cost code. And now, so when you do that roughing, well, what do you have to do? What do you require? What resources do you require to do the roughing? So you say, oh, if we do roughing, well, I'm going to require a foreman. I'm going to require an apprentice. I'm going to require a vehicle, the van. I'm going to require the trailer. I'm going to require the 16 gauge. I'm going to require the ceiling boxes. I'm going to require the conduit. I'm going to require, and so that's kind of all the different things that make up that roughing cost code. So to be able to do that, you require these materials, this equipment, and this material and this labor. And so what you do there is that kind of pulls all the information from here, and it gives you all the costs associated with that. Now the next thing is what you do with these cost codes is that you need to be able to say, okay, there's certain items, materials in the cost code. How do you link materials in the cost code, and how do you link hours in the cost code? So how you link hours in the cost code is you have a production rate. I'll go into that later on. So it's a production rate. So you might do 30 meters per hour of roughing, and that there 30-meter comes in, and that's how you capture these rates here. Then you might say, okay, you've got a material rate. So how much material do I require in this cost code? So obviously, if it's the cable, it's 1 meter. Junction boxes, you might require them every so often. And it's kind of like, okay, what's an estimate of how many junction boxes you have every so often? And it's kind of, or if you want to make it more accurate, you can make a cost code called junction boxes. But I don't really want to go into too much depth here. So then what you've got here is you've got the ability to be able to put an estimate together. So okay, it's just a trial one there. I'm just going to clear that. So what you've got is you can go, I'm just going to start a new estimate. So I'm just going to run quickly through how you go through and you build this up now. So say, well, I've built this for an electrician who does BAS work. So I'm just going to do a fan cooling unit. I'm going to say the quantity, we're going to do 6 of them. Unit, I'm going to leave the rate out and the final cost out of here. I'm going to put the overhead at 15%. I'm going to put a margin at 20. And then, so what you do is that you go to job items. Now what you're doing is you're going to say it's a fan cooling unit. Now what you've got over here, when you jump back over here, is you've got these things called groups. So you need to be able to get these cost codes and align them with those fan cooling units. Now you want to be able to do that quite easily. So what we do is there's an intermediate step which is called grouping. People call them sub items, whatever you want. And it's the FLN. So everything that's related to the FLN, it comes into here. Everything that's related to the 24 volt comes into here. So that's grouping. So you're getting your cost codes now. You've got your resources and you're putting them to a group. Now that might be a little bit confusing, but give me a second. We'll just go through this and it'll start making a little bit more sense. So you've got your item fan cooling unit here. Then what you want to do is you want to be able to go, okay, group. So say we're doing the FLN. We're doing the FLN first. Okay, what's the cost code involved with it? Just got to give it a second to upload. So okay, we're going to do roughing. We're going to do also fan cooling unit, FLN. Oh shit, what the heck is going on there? Okay, whoopsie daisy. So we've got setup, and we're also going to be doing some testing on it as well. And then say we've got fan cooling unit. We're going to do the 24 volt as well, and we're going to put the electrical. Just got to wait for that to upload. We're going to do that. And so we're probably going to do this. We need to put a setup in there as well. It's going to do a little bit of a setup around the 24 volt. It's going to take a little bit of time to get everything organized for that. So then you go testing, setup. And then you do, okay, we're going to have to do a testing on it as well. So this could be whatever you do. This is completely just made up. I just want to show you guys an example. And then what you've got here is that you've got production rates. So we can say, okay, we can do 12 of these. We can do 12 of these per hour. We can do a setup. We can do 2 setups per hour. So this is per hour. We can do 2. We can do, say, 1. Now, these production rates are really important. You might be able to do 14 because they kind of determine everything. You want to keep the same production rates across the board and track your production rates because they are the key. So say we did the takeoff, we've got 150 meters there. We've got 6 setups here. We've got 6 here. We've got 180 here. We've got 6, and so we've got 6. And then what you want to do is you want to go, okay, what's the unit of this? So it's a meter. That's an EA. That's an EA. That's a meter. That's an EA. That's an EA. And then all you're going ahead and you're doing this is you're going generate. So what you want to do now, I'll just show you in a second. So you generate job cost codes. So you're taking this information here basically that you've put all into here. So now you know the production rates, you know the quantity, but remember that cost code has got all the resources in it. So what you're doing now is you're taking the cost code, the resources, the cost codes, you're aligning it with the production rates. You've got the quantities in here, and then you can go ahead and you can basically go ahead and you can calculate off those numbers that you had before, and you can calculate the costs. So you go calculate costs. And there you go. So now you know it costs you $10.86 per meter to do the roughing FLN. It costs you $44 to do 1 setup. And then you also puts in here your overheads and everything. You drop back over here and you can see it costs you, okay, that's a little bit of an error there. It costs you $967 to do one of these guys. It costs you $5,800 to do the whole job. And then basically, okay, well, say you want to go ahead and you want to export the estimation. You can also export the estimation. So you add in the name. So you might say Queen Street. Okay, it's got a reference number which is AA789678. Okay, and go confirm. Okay,